The Pet Shop Boys have always been much more than just musicians. Their dramatically designed live shows and work in film and musical theatre attest to that. But now the pair have devised their first ballet on stage at Sadler's Wells. Working with choreographer Javier de Frutos and director Matthew Dunster, the project evolved to incorporate video footage and animation alongside dance with a musical score which mixes electropop and live orchestral performance, all used to tell a story written by a 19th century Danish maestro. The fairy tale world of Hans Christian Andersen has enthralled children and adults for the best part of 2 centuries.
The king is in the altogether, but altogether, the altogether, he's altogether as naked as the day that he was born.
His stories have been ripe for interpretation, but it's a lesser-known Andersen saga, The Most Incredible Thing, that's made its way to the Sadler's Wells stage. Inspiration struck when Chris Lowe, one half of the Pet Shop Boys, discovered the short story and, together with creative partner Neil Tennant, teamed up with controversial choreographer Javier de Frutos to recreate the fairy tale for stage. This dynamic collaboration aims to marry traditional narrative ballet with contemporary music. The story centres on 2 rivals vying for the hand of a princess by inventing the most incredible thing. At 3 acts, this is the first full-length score the Pet Shop Boys have done for the stage. However, they're no strangers to large-scale productions, having collaborated with the likes of architect Zaha Hadid and opera director David Alden for their own grand tours. But will this electro-pop and classical synthesis live up to its name? Richard Coles, this was a little dangerous having the word incredible in the title, but did it aspire to be incredible regularly?
I think it worked pretty well, but that's partly because Javier de Frutos and the Pet Shop Boys were really made for each other, both preoccupied with the kind of tension between abandonment and control, both given to these kind of lush romantic gestures anchored to a rigorous techno beat. And when they come together and get that into focus and hold it, I think it works really, really well. Occasionally it falls apart, lapses too much into abandonment or too much into control, and then it falls apart a bit. But on the whole, I thought it was really enjoyable.
Denise Minor, was it a coherent story? Did the narrative flow?
Actually, I didn't read the story before I went to see it, to see if I could get the story from it, and I understood perfectly what was going on. I thought it was really beguiling, and I don't really enjoy dance. I find it a wee bit dreary sometimes. And my attention didn't flag for a second from it. And it wasn't because I was trying to work out what was going on, but it was very, very busy. That's one thing I will say. Sometimes I was reading the text, or I was looking at the Rodchenko-inspired graphics, or watching other things, and I found it quite hard to focus on the choreography, but that might be... The music was fantastic. I mean, I don't know how you found it, but I found it really urgent and, you know, really compelling to watch.
Natalie, the collage was used as a metaphor quite a lot. I suppose the whole piece, and literally as well, but the whole piece you could see as a collage. Did the elements for you all hold together?
Sometimes, yes. The first act especially I thought was incredibly thrilling because the music was brilliant and pumping incredibly hard and really loud and exactly what you would hope for, and there were lots of people dancing at once. And then the second act, the story as a small gloss, somebody has to invent the most incredible thing, and the beautiful young man comes up with a clock, and all the characters in it, one for each number, come to life. And you go, OK, this surely is a gift for everybody involved in this. Come on, brilliant costumes. The Pet Shop Boys were involved. They were the first band I saw live. I remember Neil Tennant wearing about 18 outfits. He was better than Cher, so I was expecting a lot. And then what you get is some people wearing black, and you kind of go, do you know what? I can turn up wearing something dingy and boring. In fact, I have routinely. But give me a bit more. I want something that I was expecting it to be like, I don't know, the Nutcracker, or just this bit, obviously, or Coppelia, or frankly, I would have taken the bit in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang when they pretend to be dolls in order to get away with it. I wanted, you know, a lot. I wanted colour, and it turns out the Pet Shop Boys was not kitsch enough for me. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's happened.
Richard, was it kitsch enough or serious enough for you?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to stick my neck out and say it didn't really work for me. I thought there were some spectacular moments, as you'd expect from the Pet Shop Boys. They do bombast and excitement and that sort of slightly ironic spectacle incredibly well. When they were trying to be a bit more touching, there was some love duets. I mean, for me, the music let it down. It sounded a little bit like Call Waiting music. I mean, kept expecting to be sold a Current Plus account or something.
There were bits where that just didn't work. And I was thinking, again, in the second act, when you have that great projection of the clock comes down and this kind of pulsing constructivist collage happening and huge techno music, it rather kind of leached attention away from the figures that the bodies were making on the stage. And that was when it sort of came out of focus, when it pulled away and was least successful, I thought.
So you said that the music was almost too dominant for any choreographer, or that Javier de Frutos didn't quite step up to the plate?
I think on the whole they got that pretty good. It was when it began to pull too much in one direction rather than the other. I think it was at its best when it was absolutely at that point of tension where the abandonment met the control.
I quite enjoyed that actually, when the attention shifted from one thing to another. And I think if you're not very into dance, it's quite nice to have someplace else to go, because I do find dance quite dull to listen to. And I find dance, particularly contemporary dance, tends to get a theme and batter it to death. And this was like jump cuts, and a lot of it was like a video, because the jump cuts were so fast, especially in that sequence.
Some of it was
going
lovely.
from theme to theme to theme.
But Javier de Frutos, his last work, The Eternal Damnation, was so controversial the BBC pulled its coverage. Did you expect this to be edgier in terms of what he brought to the stage?
I guess there's a limit to how edgy a fairy tale is probably going to be, even a Hans Christian Andersen one. So, yeah, I think probably when it tried to be edgy is kind of when it least succeeded for me, because I think quite reasonably, having read the story, everyone competes to offer the most incredible thing. They went, what? How does that have a resonance today? Wait a minute, I know, the X Factor. Please don't try and parody reality television. It is always the wrong thing to do, because in your head you're going, it's brilliant, it's so big, it's right for parody. It's already a parody. Exactly, you can't parody something that big. Please don't bring on the lady with the microphone who looks a little bit like Davina McCall after a long night. I don't need to see it, and it's a little dull too.
Meanwhile, they were trying to introduce some kind of Soviet-Russian theme. They had all this constructivist imagery throughout it, and it was supposedly set in Russia, and I didn't quite see how that fitted in.
But everything was in, wasn't it? I mean, it was so richly elusive. There was, everything from kind of Esther Williams to Mayakovsky to Wedekind. It was... there was sort of no end of no bottom to the kitty from which they were producing all the goods. And sometimes I thought that worked again too. There was something quite...
Was it sinister enough? I mean, famously, the Danish resistance took this story during the war as a kind of symbol, a kind of rallying call against the Nazis. Now, to put it in any kind of crypto-Nazi context would have been a real cliché, but did the Soviet thing give it a sinister edge?
I quite liked that it was in a fictional Eastern state, and it had all the iconography of a fictional state. And also, I think that is a Pet Shop Boys theme, is it not?
And it made it really good for choreography too, because that's where you had a whole ensemble on stage, all dancing in a sort of automated way with these very kind of stiff feet and hands. Those were the most exciting bits, I think.
Did you find them sinister? I didn't find any of it sinister. I just thought it was really jolly.
There was a little kind of clockwork orange enough to it,
dancing
perhaps.
in the presence of Ivan Petrov. He had a strong and slightly edgy stage presence, didn't he?
Yes, he did, and also really helped by both an incredibly ambitious set and projection. And I feel like quite often people go, they can't bring these new things into this old art form. And actually, all those things were brilliant. The projections were incredibly well done.
Richard,
the lighting was beautiful.
Did this make you nostalgic for your former life with the Communards?
Well, not really, because we were sort of very pedestrian compared to the one as the Pet Shop
But where
Boys.
should the Pet Shop Boys go after this? They've done grandiose public film performances in Trafalgar Square.
Well, they've already been there, haven't they? If you look at like the Performance Store, a Pet Shop Boys live performance, it was already almost like being at Sadler's Wells anyway, except you had more of... Yeah, I wanted
so opera mainly. Perhaps that's where they might go next.
Well, I think something the bigger, the grander, the better.
OK, on that note, we must end. Thank you. The Most Incredible Thing is on at Sadler's Wells in London till tomorrow, but it'll be screened on BBC4 later this year.